swallowed the red pill back in 2008 and began reporting the news in front of a camera in 2019. In that time, we've seen a complete upheaval in world politics. The battle lines have changed between the illusion of left versus right to the reality of globalism versus nationalism. Despite all the information, the truth and the lies, there are two very distinct pathways emerging. Should we follow Labor and Liberal to a dystopic one-world government, or do we fight for our nationalism, unlock our hidden resources wealth and build a new Australia? With the world teetering on a knife's edge, should we solidify our relationship with the USA and become the 51st state? This is my mission statement here on Australian National Review, and I welcome you to Black Pill me as hard as you can as we determine our future together. This is the 51st state. Welcome to the 51st State. This is episode number 23 in the series that is exploring the ideas from around the world and Australia, wherever we go and whatever we do, that we are going to determine our future together and explore new ways. Why is it that you can be censored in Australia for something that you say? How is it that you can be punished for something that you may be thinking? What kind of world are we in when we have to fight tooth and nail for the very basics that other countries that are called free, and we pretend that we are in fact doing and we can't do? And that's why this show looks towards the United States and the Bill of Rights, the different parts of the Constitution that allow for free speech, and heaven forbid, the right to bear arms. Could you imagine if you even brought that up in Australia? We're not going there right now, but in today's show, we're going to go over to the US and we're going to meet a commentator and news journalist who has over 500,000 followers. Quite extraordinary on his YouTube page there, Explain America. He's also the author of a new book to be released very soon called Programmed to Obey. I'll bring that up for you right there in front of my face. How TV Destroyed America's Soul. We'll get into that conversation after the break. And from there, we're going to, be surprised at how it is that Carmine is, fielding inquiries from unlikely people, but people nonetheless that are looking for answers and have questions, new information about what's going on in the world today. We'll get into all of that after the break. Don't go anywhere. You are watching the 51st State. And welcome back to the 51st State. My guest for this hour is Carmine Sabia. He is the host of Explain America on YouTube and a journalist, editor, radio and TV pundit, Christian conservative and NRA member. His latest book is called Programmed to Obey, How TV Destroyed America's Soul. And you can find him on X at Carmine Sabia, His YouTube is YouTube at Explain America. Carmine, Sabia, welcome to the 51st State.
Pleasure to be here, Jason. Pleasure to be here.
It's terrific to have you on the show, Carmine. You have got built an incredible audience on YouTube. I'll put that up on screen for everyone to have a look at. Please go and have a look at Explain America. 500,000 subscribers. Congratulations. That is a lot of work to get to that point. How did you do it?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. My dog's gonna bark. It was a lot of work. But my boss, I work for a company and played a role in building that up, and the machine behind that played a role in building that up. We have millions of followers, and we get 30 million clicks, let's say, a month on our website, and so from the website we drove people to the YouTube, and and they stuck. And then a lot of people, I have 1 million followers on Facebook, so, and I have like this 150,000 on X, I guess, I don't know. So there's carryover with the fans that way. And I've done TV and appearances here and there. So people come in to look for me and they'll find me. And you know what, man? Honestly, at the end of the day, the straight truth is God. Because I'm a kid, not anymore, but I mean, I come from the inner city. I was poor growing up, no college education. There's no reason I'm here. Except God Almighty had a plan, and His plan's always better than my plan. And so here I am, and I'm grateful every day to Him. So all the glory to God. All the glory to God.
Isn't it nice that you can go on an adventure and be able to watch it just fall, one, into your lap, but two, the process of doing it. And there's this somewhat ease, the fact that, you can have self-doubt along the way and things can be difficult, but the process builds. And I love the fact that as we're speaking, and that's why I went to this beautiful wide shot, because I'm looking behind you at this celebration of, let's call it sporting and entertainment success right behind you, something else to be celebrated. And it's most unlikely, Carmine, they look like wrestling belts. Can you tell me a bit about those?
So I was a promoter in professional wrestling. I wrestled 2 matches. That was horrible. But then I became a promoter. I decided, I said, you know what? I'm going to just take over the company. And that's what I did. It was a small, little local company. And I got into the business and I met so many famous wrestlers. And here I am, 18, 19. I'm running shows. And I got these wrestlers who I looked up to as a kid, these giants. And they're working for me now. And they're, coming in and doing appearances. And I was always been a wrestling fan since I was like 5 years old. And then so over the course of time, I have collected these belts, which 90% of these, 95% of my collection, I have over 100, are real. They're not, WWE shop replicas. They're the real deal. And I, up there is like the originals from the 80s. So it was always a passion of mine. Jason, it reminds me, because I just watch it about Hulk Hogan, and from now on, when people say, what celebrity death hit you the hardest, that's going to be my answer. Hulk Hogan. He was, as a celebrity, the focal point of my childhood. Obviously, God, my mother, but on TV, celebrity-wise, Hulk Hogan was the guy. And I thought about it today, about an hour before I was doing your show, while I was watching this, and I said, when I was a kid, when you were a kid, 1980s, we had Hulk Hogan, we had Sylvester Stallone, Rocky, Rambo, we had Arnold Schwarzenegger, we had Mike Tyson, men who were masculine and who knocked other men out in battles of grit and strength. And what do we have today? Who are the men that our children look up to today? Liam Hemsworth, Harry Styles. Who are these waifs of men? You see them on TV, on your commercials and on your TV shows, 140 pounds soaking wet, couldn't protect you in a rainstorm if they had an umbrella. And these guys, it's a shame, because as I see it, what we have is a lack of masculinity, and TV plays such a vital role in that. TV, music, movies, the entertainment industry as a whole plays such a vital role.
Very interesting, isn't it, that you happen to bring up the name of Sylvester Stallone as well as recollecting on the memory of Hulk Hogan. And it was only just today that Donald Trump has announced the Kennedy Center Awards, and he's announcing Sylvester Stallone, Kiss, George Strait, Gloria Gaynor, Michael Crawford as honorees. I find that extraordinary. The timing, Carmine, is next level. There you go. These are some of the pictures: Stallone and Kiss. And here's Trump mentioning it, and you've got Gloria Gaynor, George Strait. Just extraordinary, and it's so true that the lack of positive role models for kids today that you can look up to, and in a world where it seems the only films at the cinema that seem to have been successful in recent times were these Marvel films. And it's the same formula over and over. I remember thinking recently, I thought, I'll take the kids to the cinema. Hadn't been for some time, used to be a crazy movie buff. And every film on the list was a sequel. There was not one original film. And I thought, how does that work? Is it so that we're so formulaic now, or that the Hollywood system can't take a risk, that it just goes down this pathway?
I think it's a big deal. I think it's a big part of it is that they're afraid to take a risk. I think the creativity well has dried up. There's no new characters anymore. I get annoyed with the Marvel and DC movies every summer. It's like, all right, same movie, just insert new superhero. But what does it show you? Because the superhero is usually a man, and he's usually strong, and he's usually destroying things and fixing and saving the day. Because let me tell you something, Jason, you can put a dress on a man. You can tell people that masculinity is toxic. You can tell men to get in touch with their feminine side. You can do all these things. But what you can't do, and I know, I don't want to steer your audience so much in a religious direction. I'm sure some of you are secular. And so when I say God, if you don't want to hear that, you could insert the universe or whatever you want. I believe very strongly that it's God. You can do whatever you want. You can put lipstick on a pig, but God made us how he made us. And it is embedded in our DNA. Women want to protect her. Women want a man who is a man. They want a man who can take care of them, who can provide for them financially, who can take care of them when they need to be taken care of. And men want a woman who is feminine, who is, nurturing, who will nurture him, because men, we are big babies. God has given us roles, Jason. God has given us roles. And, you could put a dress on, you can pretend you're a woman all you want, but in 1,000 years when they dig up your corpse, they're going to say, male. You can't change who you are.
It's such a valuable, again, just simple insight, and almost like we live in a world where it's super competitive. And at the same time, there is a feeling, an overwhelming feeling for many people entering, adulthood at least, on the great big wide world, how tough it is. But the feeling of defeat before you even get started. And therefore, I feel like that there seems to be a want to come up with the next big thing or something new or something different to get an edge for people. But again, it's the hard work at the beginning that, in any case, that is where you get started from. So because we live in a society of instant gratification, therefore, and the overnight success, this again provides that feeling that traditional values are yesterday's news, when the opposite holds. And I always find, and it was only yesterday on the show when I had veteran John Armfield, an Australian Navy clearance diver, explain something similar, that you only find God through adversity. To paraphrase, you're not going to find it when things are going well, because you're looking for understanding. And just to share in my own situation, when my wife and I lost our firstborn, who was sadly stillborn at 31 weeks, one of the worst possible things you could ever go through. For mine, it was at that point through the healing process that I discovered that I went from atheist to believer. And it was quite a powerful revelation. But what I realized in that moment was that for me to get on with the rest of my life, because it is unnatural to bury a child, the best thing that I could do, and the only thing I could do, was to live my best life in honor of her and those that can't be here to live theirs. And so it lifted me. And I thought, well, that is the power of God speaking to me at that point. because there is no other way. If I was to become resentful, if I was to become hateful, if I was to become a victim and realize that woe is me, that this is not how it goes, how could I possibly serve the memory of my daughter being her father still living here, should one day we ever meet again somewhere else in an afterlife? And I found that was the only way to go. Now, we didn't plan for this in the conversation, Carmine, but I think this is where it becomes deeply personal, because it is an understanding that what we are trying, all of us are trying to do, is to leave the world a better place than we found it, to create from our families, have a loving family around us who we can share in the joys, the spoils, the good and the bad. But at the end of the day, it's a simple process, and maybe we overthink these things, but at the same time, we have to realize that life is a journey. It is not a destination, and it wasn't meant to be easy, for goodness sake.
No, I mean, Jesus didn't have it easy by any stretch of the imagination. I tell you the truth. First of all, my mother buried a son. He was 12 years old, cystic fibrosis, 12 years.
Yeah. Oh,
buried
yes,
a son,
I understand,
had other little kids. And, she said this was God's intention. She never lost her faith. It was hard. She cried. She was, till the day she died. May they both rest in peace. But to the day she died, she cried for him. I believe in my heart and soul they're together now. I watched something the other day on YouTube, and it was just this series of events that would have had to happen in order for the universe to be how it is without a creator. And I mean, it's just so mind-blowingly astronomical that you see a lot of atheists now will say, well, we're in a simulation, because they can't understand how perfect everything is if it's not designed. But instead of saying God, they'll say we're in a simulation. But I would posit to them, and I believe in Jesus Christ, don't get me wrong, and there's plenty of evidence for him. We'll get to that. But I would posit to them, well, if we're in a simulation, if that's your theory, I don't believe it, but that's your theory. If that is your theory, then wouldn't the creator of that simulation be God? By definition, you're still believing in a creator. So you had mentioned before about how things were in the past. I always have a saying. People say to me, well, toxic masculinity or, women's rights and all this stuff. By the way, women's rights, and we can get into this if you want, women's rights absolutely drove a stake through the heart of the United States and Western civilization. When I say that, that's an attention getter. You don't think women should have rights? No, I'm not saying that, but I'll explain to you if you want how exactly it did that. And it's just common sense. I'll say things like, it's not like you'll hear it, you'll be like, holy shit, that makes sense. But what I always say to people when I talk about feminism or toxic masculinity, I'm like, what do you mean the male's role is to earn a living and the woman's role is to take care of children? And I always say, well, excuse me, you're right. It was only that way for all of human history until 10 minutes ago. So clearly I'm wrong. It only worked for all of human history till right now. And now you want to change it. You want to. My favorite is, and off topic, I don't want to diverge too much when people talk about climate change. We cause climate change. The Earth is billions of years old. We've been burning fossil fuels for about 100 years. You think we set the Earth back? It's billions of years. Volcanoes going off. The sun. The volcano goes off tomorrow. All the climate change crap you did is erased like that.
Yes.
So humans have this very, what's the word I'm looking for? This ego, this very raised sense of self, how important we are. We can stop the climate change. Well, when there's been ice ages and heating and the younger, driest all throughout human history, but you think you're the ones that are going to stop it. It's just such an ego that human beings have.
Such a good point, because my latest approach to bring up climate change, or when it comes up, when people get into a tailspin, and again, the younger generation, the kids, some can be quite panicked because they're kind of indoctrinated in school. And I always ask this question, especially if I'm hosting an event or a show, and even if it's unrelated to if it's just a social event, and I'll ask, can anybody tell me how many parts per million carbon dioxide there are in the atmosphere? Just a rough guess. What percentage? And most people won't say anything because they don't want to look foolish, because they don't know. And the other day, a gentleman put his hand up and said, I'd say 30%. I said, well, thanks for the answer, but unfortunately, it's a lot less than that.
We'd be dead.
And, Exactly. And it's, it's 0.0432%, 432 parts per million. And then I asked them, does anyone know the percentage of carbon dioxide on Venus? And of course, no one knows, but it's 96% CO2.
Right.
And so then I say, and then I make a comparison that Venus is 2/3 of the way closer to the sun, and the temperature reaches about 450 to 460 degrees centigrade. Mercury gets to about 440, and it's 1/3 of the way closer again. And so, yes, carbon dioxide plays a role here, but if you were to extrapolate on a linear or an exponential or a logarithmic method, whichever way you get to it, based on that CO2 level and based on our CO2 level, Venus should be 21,000 degrees, not 460 degrees. And that's my point, based on the fact that you're telling me that all of this could put the CO2 in our atmosphere from 432 parts per million to 532 parts per million. And what happens is that most people go, oh, I understand it. And then you get a few zealots going, oh, you don't understand. You don't understand. And I'm like, well, please explain it to me, because there is no way in the world that if you're going to tell us our contribution from going up 100 parts per million can possibly raise the average Earth temperature from 15 degrees to what Bill Gates is telling us is 3.5, not 1.5 degrees, to 18.5. It is simply not possible. And no matter what calculation. Exactly. And that's the point.
Money there. It's a Ponzi scheme. It's always
there you go.
I was like, we're going to get to my book in a little bit. It's about TV, and I'm a big TV buff. A lot of these shows, I say in the book, I'm not telling you not to watch these shows because I'm naming almost every show. I'm not saying don't watch the shows. I watch the shows.
Yes.
And watch the shows with open eyes now. You're going to see it differently. You're going to see how the plan unfolded. I was watching an episode of All in the Family the other day. One of my favorite shows, one of the most guilty in this book. And I love the show. Mike Stivic, remember Mike Stivic, Meathead, Rob Reiner? He's sitting there talking to Gloria about his wife, about why he doesn't want to have kids. And he doesn't want to have kids because, Gloria, don't you understand? We're creating a hole in the ozone layer. In 15 years, there's going to be another ice age. That show was about 40, maybe 50 years ago. Okay? It's always something, but it's always something. You can go back.
Yeah.
There's always a panic. There's going to be another ice age. There's going to be a global warming. It's always something with them. Every 10 years, they change it, but it's always the end of the world in about 10 years.
Mm.
And what they don't worry about, however, is the fact that we're going through the Pleiades right now. If I pronounce that right, the Pleiades, meteor shower.
Yep.
And they tell it's so pretty, it's so pretty. It takes one that we can't see that's big enough to wipe out a city, undo all of your globe. It's a shooting range. We go through it every year. It is a shooting range. It is uniquely and incredibly dangerous. We go through 2 or 3 of these every year, okay? It's incredibly dangerous. It's a shooting gallery. And we have no idea if one of these can hit us. It can blindside. Last year, one missed us by this much, and we didn't see it till it was past us. Okay? So you want to talk about global warming and all this? I promise you a rock from space will wipe us on our butts quicker than all the CO2 you ever saw. It will happen eventually. It's happened before. A super volcano. So one of these things is going to happen. You can't control it. The reason the global warming scheme works, and it's a scheme, the reason it works, right now it's hot. It's the summertime. Okay? I hate it. I hate the heat. Give me an ice age. I want an ice age. I'm the guy that wants the ice age.
Right.
I'll be sitting there, me and Chili Willie on the ice cube, ice fishing. But the reason it works is because it tells people the world's going to end. But you have the power to stop it. You have power. You can stop it. It's a psychological game. And then these people go and they get their hemp bags that they go to the grocery store with and reuse 46 times. And I'm saving the world. And they believe that. They believe that. And they yell at you. You should drive an electric car. Drive an electric car. What's making the electricity that electric car runs on? It's coal. That's right. It's oil. You're not doing shit for the environment. It's a psychological game. You think you're doing something for the environment. I get frustrated. I go off on tangents because I get frustrated with stupidity.
But this is the whole point, right? Because what you're talking about is mass information at a time when the free will that we were all told. Now, you don't have to be religious or a believer to have been told by a parent at birth, son, daughter, you have free will by your parents. Everyone believed that, and yet today we live in a world where groupthink has become the hive mind, and anyone who dares challenge is mocked and ridiculed and even excluded by the same people that encourage DEI. And so they do have a threshold at which, if you don't go along with what I say, we're going to cancel you, and therefore you will not be allowed to be heard of. And so we live in this new world where censorship is the other side of what's happening. So even though in your book you're talking about, I'll put it up on the screen again for people, it's coming out in about 90 days, I understand, Programmed to Obey, How TV Destroyed America's Soul by Carmine Sabia. What you watched wasn't harmless, it was a plan. And here's the point, isn't it? Because if we look at the masses, and we just talked about the Marvel movies before, and because it's a sequel system and therefore it's a control system. So if the Hollywood system, the TV, the Century City, if you will, they must have worked out at a time, even if we think back to McCarthyism and that communist plot, but the same people, or at least the same system, has used it to create mass control. Is that where you're going? Is it Hollywood?
Oh God,
is it the script writers? Who started it and who maintained it and who thought it was a great idea?
Sure. Many years ago, McCarthy and others got into Washington, D.C., and they said, communists are taking over our entertainment industry. They're taking over our schools, and they're getting into politics. And they were scoffed at. Today, Hollywood makes movies about this era. The Hollywood blacklist, McCarthyism, right? And they make fun of it because they say it was crazy. You know why they do that? Because they're Hollywood. They're the ones telling the story. But the truth is, McCarthy, the Hollywood blacklist, they were right. They were right. Khrushchev said in the 50s, like, we're not going to invade the United States. We'll destroy it from within. We'll plant the seeds of communism. We'll plant the seeds. Well, if you're going to take over a culture, what's the first thing you need to do? You need to emasculate the men, right? You need to move them away from God and make them reliant on the state, make them see the state as God.
Mm.
And last step, and this is the most important, my Australian friends know this, you have to disarm them. Because a population that has weapons is very hard to control. I have a lot of Australian friends, some of whom hate what's going on in Australia, some of whom think it's the greatest. Now, I would never go back to a time when there was guns. And I said, and I've said this to Australia, I said it to you before, Jason. I said, let me ask you a question. You think you have freedom? Do you think you're in a free country? Of course I'm in a free country. There's no dictators here. We're in a free, we have elections. My answer to that is, it's a very simple litmus test for me if you're in a free country. Can you be arrested for saying certain words? And usually the knee-jerk reaction is, well, no, you could say whatever. Well, let me ask you a question. If you were on a train and there was a group of black people walked on and you said, you bunch of N-words, could you be arrested? Well, that's a horrible thing to say. Why would I say that? You should be arrested. I said, no. Could you be arrested for saying that? I'm not saying you should say it. It's a horrible thing. I agree with you. Could you be arrested? Well, yeah, you could be arrested because you don't have freedom. If you can't say what you want, because let me tell you something, Jason, it is a short walk from you can't say the N-word to you can't criticize your government. It is a short walk, and people don't realize that. That's why freedom of speech comes first in the Constitution. All speech. Now, if you're threatening somebody, different story. That's a different story. Now you've taken it to an extreme. Now you're committing a criminal act. I think nobody should say the N-word. I think nobody should say, words to gay people that are harmful or hurtful. I don't think people should hurt people with their words. I think it's horrible. But what I really don't think is, I don't think a group of elite people should be the ones to dictate, these are the words we decree that you cannot say. By the way, if you want to make fun of white Christian people, knock yourself nuts. You can do that all day. There's no penalty for that. It's just every other group that you can't say anything about. So, no, I would tell you that Australia is not a free country. I would tell you that England, the UK, is not free. Canada is not free. Any place you can be arrested and prosecuted for saying words on the internet. And you got to think before you type something, can I get arrested for this? If you have to think that before you type on the internet, you are not in a free country. It's no different than Iraq or Russia or any place that where you can get arrested for speech. I don't have to think that. I want to type something. I want to say something. I say it. I can get canceled. There can be consequences. Somebody might come and punch me in the face, but the government's not going to come after me. And so that's the other thing. That's a big thing for me. And another litmus test is, can you have the right to bear arms? Oh, well, the United States has mass shootings every week. Well, not really. A lot of it's gang violence, but I think that we do have a very unique problem in the United States with mass shootings. And I could write a book about this too, and maybe I will, because I've done the research on this, Jason. We had in the 1950s, which is what in this book, what I really talk about being the pinnacle of American society with TV. It was the perfect time with TV. But you go back to the 1950s, they had gun classes in school. Even in the 80s, kids were going to school with a gun rack on their car and they go hunting after school. Guns all over the place in the 1980s, 1970s, 60s, 50s. Something unique happened around the late 1980s, mid 1980s. We started saying, Timmy fidgets a lot in school and he likes to talk to his friends a lot and he's not really paying attention. We should give him these pills. He has some attention disorder. Let's give him these pills, and these pills will work on his underdeveloped mind to make him more docile, to make him more programmable, to make him a robot. And that happened. And for 95% of the kids, it made them robots. It dumbed them down. It made them calm. And they were able to be indoctrinated into the program and become good little worker bees. But for maybe 5%, it really screwed with their brain. And this is what I believe. I'm not a scientist, but I can draw you, Jason, a straight line from when those pills started being prescribed. You go forward about 16 years to when these kids are of age and the mass shooting epidemic begins. I can draw you a straight line from the beginning of these prescriptions being doled out in mass to when these shootings started. It's never been the guns, because you can give a person like me 1,000 guns and I'm never going to go harm innocent people. It's not the guns. It's the people. And I think a lot of these people, I blame the drugs. I blame the prescription drugs that are given to children, not adults. I take anti-anxiety medication, okay, at a fully developed adult mind. When you're giving these drugs to children whose minds have not developed, how the hell could that not have an effect? That's just common sense.
Powerful statements and really perfect observations as you described there. You can draw a straight line. Look, I want to take a quick break, and when we come back, I want to make another comparison that we'll go on to, and it's very similar. It's again in the 80s, but we'll compare notes as we come back. Don't go anywhere. You're watching The 51st State.
Australian National Review is Australia's first real free and independent press. One with no editorial control by the elite, but a publication that can generate critical thinkers and critical debate, and hold those spreading mistruths and deliberate propaganda in mainstream media to account. News with a difference that will be educational, compelling, and create a platform for political and social change in this country, and address the real issues facing this country and the world.
And welcome back to the 51st State. My guest is our Carmine Sabia, who is the host of Explain America. 500,000 subscribers there on YouTube. He's also the author of Program to Obey. And on that note, I'll bring him straight back in. Carmine, before the break, talking very important observations that you've made there between the medications given to perhaps hyperactive children that started in the 80s and drawing a line to the mass shootings. I wanted to make a comparison because it's something that I observed that in that sort of period in the 80s, here in Australia at least, there was the concept of stranger danger. And suddenly, where kids would play outside morning, noon and afternoon and night until dark, and no one really seemed to care. You'd jump on your bike, you'd play footy, you'd play baseball, cricket, soccer, whatever you were doing, and then we all did it. And then suddenly stranger danger came about. And by the time we sort of hit the 90s, perhaps late 90s, you don't see kids on the street anymore. And the other thing was that you didn't really get to know your neighbour the way that you might have in the past. And so we started a new society that you sort of kept to yourself. And I wonder if you were able to sort of see something similar in where you grew up.
100%. You just described what happened here. When we were kids, till the streetlights came on, and even stayed out after that. We got on our bikes. We rode around the neighborhoods. We weren't inside ever. We were playing sports, and we played football here on concrete, tackling each other on concrete. I'm talking about American football. And then we're playing hockey and baseball and basketball and fighting, getting into fistfights. Ladies and gentlemen out there, listen to me. If your son comes home from school and he's in trouble because he got into a fist fight, you don't have to scold him. That's nature. That's natural. Everybody in the animal kingdom does this. It's a fight for domination, and it's how you learn problem-solving skills. I must have gotten 100 fights in grade school and high school, 100 minimum. And that's how you. And some of these people are my best friends today. It was problem-solving skills. You know, I was a real smart ass in school, Jason. I made a lot of wisecracks. And one day, somebody bigger and stronger came along and knocked me on my keister. And I learned that day that sometimes you need to shut the F up because you don't know who you're messing with. It was a lesson learned. It was a life lesson. And I think one of the things I say when I see so many people out here today, you know, their mouths on the internet, I say, you know, the problem is not enough people get punched in the face anymore. I know 20 and 30-year-old kids that have been in 0 fights in their life. 0 fights. That's insane to me. I grew up in the inner city, but still, that's insane to me. I can't imagine how that's a thing. So you ask the question, did I see the same thing here? Hell yes. Hell yes. Stranger danger, which is interesting because when I was a kid, there was like 30 guys. You know, yeah, we were 10, 11, 12, but there was like 30 of us. Who's going to try and take one when the other 29 are going to attack you? Which they have sticks and baseball bats. You're not going to try that. We didn't have to worry about that stuff because we were in packs. And then as the generations get older, my generation started locking their kids in the house a little bit, right? I see it snow out here. I don't know if you guys get snow where you are in Australia. I see it snow here. When I was a kid and it snowed, we grabbed our shovels. It was time to make money. All right. I see shovels here. You don't see a kid for blocks, miles. Okay. You don't see. I live next door to a school, Jason. I live next door to a school. You could hear a pin drop at that school. I walk outside in the morning. The kids are all lined up waiting for the school bus to go to the high school. I've seen the zombie apocalypse, Jason, and it's an iPhone.
Yeah.
I've seen the zombie apocalypse. They're locked into their phones. They're 1 inch from each other, and they don't have a conversation. Okay? And now, this is my time of year coming up. I love this fall, winter, you got Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas. I love this time of year. And I used to enjoy, and I'm going back even 10 years ago, one of my favorite things to do was buy a whole boatload of candy and see the little kids in their cute little costumes, trick or treat, and give them the piece of candy. And they were so cute. And I love children and I love dogs, like, and cats. And like, I love them. They're cute. And I still love that. Jason, the past 3 years on this block, there's been 0 trick-or-treaters. They do something now called trunk or treat. They go to the school parking lot and they go from car to car, parent to parent, and the parents give them candy. Where the hell is the fun in that. You know that every car you go to is going to give you candy. When I was a kid, you had to, are they home? Are they going to give us candy? What kind of candy do they have?
Yeah.
We have taken something away from these kids that they're never going to know the fun of getting with a gang of your friends. You're all dressed up and you're trick-or-treating. They're never going to know that. That's so sad.
That is a sad indictment, isn't it? In the land of the free, home of the brave, and here we are talking about in Australia, where the right to say something, right or wrong, but at least to be able to say it without being censored. But here you're explaining something in the US that it's a form of self-censorship. Now I'll throw one right back at you. Two stories. One, I was in San Francisco a decade ago, and I was with some family, and we were at a cinema, and I noticed that there was a line out the front. There was some markers, some posts where you were to line up, assuming that it was busy. And then there was about 20 or 30 stairs upwards towards where you went into the cinema. And I noticed that people were standing at the bottom of the stairs, forming a queue, despite there being no one on the stairs, and it looked empty upstairs. So I just started to walk up the stairs, to which someone said to me, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm going inside to the movies." They said, "Oh, no, you've got to line up down here." I'm like, why would I line up down here when there's nobody on the stairs? I'm going to wait upstairs. Thanks very much. Just doesn't make any sense that I'm going to line up with nobody out on the street. Now, that's just one crazy example. The other one was that another person came to me. We had a great big discussion about the idea of life off planet. And given that there's a lot of talk lately, there's the whole Dave Grush story, there's the Congress is finally starting to talk about, UAPs, which used to be called UFOs, et cetera, et cetera. And it's one of the great topics that I've been fascinated with, because my belief is that if God can create human beings, he can certainly create other people on other planets. And why would we think that we are the epitome of intelligence when
create an entire universe to put life on one blue marble? It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. And so the argument that
also,
came back,
the Bible talks about beings coming from the sky in vehicles. I mean, it talks about this. Every ancient does it, so does the Bible.
And so the argument that came back was the old argument, which was, people would be too shocked if they found out that there was life off planet. And I thought, excuse me, you're the person that got me into this subject 25 years ago. Why are you now self-censoring? Because you've been programmed living in California that there are weaker people in society that can't cope. But why do you make the decision that you're the one arbitrarily to self-censor because you think that people can't cope with this? Where did we arrive at this, given that what we consume in Hollywood, it's a science fiction fact, whatever it is? How do you juxtapose those two concepts together within your book?
I think it's fear of being canceled, and I think it's fear of, we don't get into the alien topic here, but the idea is they set the agenda. Hollywood sets the agenda, and every year I go decade by decade in the book, and you'll see how every decade it goes from love your country, love God, love your family, respect your parents, to your parents are idiots, to hell with the country, you don't need God, you're your own God, and live for yourself. And it goes, I mean, it's, when you talk about from the 1950s to the year 2000, let's say, that's the blink of an eye in human. We have undone thousands of years of human structure in about 50 years. Thousands of years. Because everybody has a box in their house that transmits a message that permeates and it repeats, and you hear it enough. And I'll give you an example right in real time, Jason. And I'm not weighing in on how I feel about gay marriage one way or the other. Frankly, I believe in marriage between a man and a woman, but I also believe in marriage as a religious event. And so if the state wants to marry two porcupines to a turtle, it doesn't matter to me, because I don't recognize state marriage. That being said, and I'm sorry, I got a scratchy throat. That being said, we've broken down the boundaries of what is and what should be and what has always been to accommodate, and people self-censor now because the media will cancel you. I'm uncancelable. I'm a conservative journalist. Put me on the news and say Carmine said something against woke people. Good. My views will go up. I'll make more money. So, I'll buy my second Rolex this year. Go ahead, cancel me. Right? So I think people self-censor out of fear out of fear. I have friends that run businesses. They won't post what they really think on Facebook because they're afraid it'll hurt their business, and they're probably right. And then people stage boycotts and all this stuff. And I want to touch on the UFO. I always call it UFO. UFO situation for you. I would say to you this: there are things, because of what I do for a living, I do have some people that I'm friendly with that are in positions where they might or might not know some information that I may or may not know. I would never say that information. I would never say what I know publicly, because the government's taken out better people than me and bigger people than me for saying things. But I will say this to you. If you look at all the evidence for alien intervention and alien visitation in human history, and you look at that evidence and you brought it to a court of law, I would be shocked if a jury didn't come back and say, well, it's very obvious that they've been here, that they're still here, and that they have some interaction with us, especially in recent times, because I don't know, it took us about 1,000, 2,000 years to go from a candle to a light bulb, and about 50 years to go from a light bulb to a telephone with a chip in it that can put a man on the moon. Okay? Something happened after Roswell that changed technology in ways that defy logic. We jumped thousands of years of technology in the blink of an eye, my friend. In the blink of an eye. And it's hard to fathom how that can be if there wasn't some intervention somewhere. I believe that the ship that passed us, I can't pronounce the name of it, Ogabuku, whatever it was, years ago.
Yes.
I believe that was an alien ship. I believe 100% that the evidence suggests it. And the evidence suggests this next one that's coming is an alien ship, because it'd be a hell of a coincidence, the trajectory it's taking alongside planets to kind of whip itself with a gravitational pull and then hide behind the sun. It seems very likely to me that there's some intelligence behind it. It's not shaped like it should be to be natural. It's not moving like it should be to be natural. But just like people who try to deny God, people will try to deny aliens because they can't bring themselves to admit that it's probably true. But if you look at biblical texts, if you look at the ancient Hindu texts, if you look at the Quran, if you look at Mayan texts, any ancient text, they talk about beings in the sky, good and evil, having a war with each other. Having a war with each other over humans. We're the prize. Now, I would suggest to you that maybe it's angels and demons. Maybe it's more spiritual than it is, alien. And I would advise you to look at what happened at the Miami Mall a few years ago. I believe it was called the Bayside or Bayshore Mall. Are you familiar with that story?
No, please tell me.
So there was witnesses at this mall in Miami who said that there was like this portal that opened up inside the mall, and these giant shadow beings walked out. Now, I sound crazy talking about this. I wasn't there. I don't know what happened. Well, 180 police cars showed up to this mall. Every cell phone, as people were walking out, their cell phones were confiscated and wiped. This is what witnesses said. Witnesses then came on, and they did TikTok videos talking about, this is what I saw. And there was one or two videos that survived that look really like, what the hell is that in that video? But witnesses, then all of a sudden, these witnesses, about a week later, looking like they're in a hostage video, recanted their stories. Oh, I was just pranking it. I didn't mean it. None of that stuff happened. And a couple of those witnesses were never seen again. And the official reason that the police gave for 180 police cars showing up was a group of teenagers got into a fight with sticks and fireworks. 180 police cars for a group of teenagers who got involved in a fight with sticks and fireworks. That's a hell of a response. And this is not, this is Miami. Police in Miami had nothing better to do than for about 8 kids that had a fight.
Yes.
180 police cars.
Something else, isn't it?
I would advise you to look into that, my friend.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Now, another story that just related, and we completely off topic, and that's part of the fun of a wild chat. 3 or 4 days after President Trump, who was then Donald Trump, wins the election in 2016, the U.S. Secretary of State, John Kerry, boards a plane and goes to Antarctica. I'll put up the article right here for you on the screen. This was in PBS. I've picked it out from just now for you. Look at the date down the bottom there, November 11, 2016. John Kerry lands in Antarctica, highest U.S. official to ever visit. Now, that one had me stumped for some time and still don't know. There he is on the ice in Antarctica. Why would the outgoing Secretary of State, after the non-establishment character gets up in the greatest upset in U.S. political history, and he's attending Antarctica, of all places? What could possibly be the reason? And of course, this goes to the idea of maybe there's something down there, maybe there's someone in control, maybe a visiting external species, maybe a predating human species. Who knows? The thing is, it's the inquiry that is why we're here. We don't always get the answer, but we're living in an age now that somehow ignorance has usurped inquiry, the idea of asking questions. And so I find that a fascinating subject. No one's ever been able to put, a real spin on it. They'll give you a spin answer, but there's no reason why you would go down there. What possible reason would the U.S. Secretary of State have to go to Antarctica after he loses for Obama and Hillary's gone?
Who's he meeting? And let me ask you this question. When it comes to Antarctica, how come you can visit about this much of it, but this much of it is off limits?
Exactly.
And every country in the world, by the way, agrees to keep that part off limits.
Yes.
Did you ever read the diary of Admiral Byrd?
Oh yes, it's brilliant, and people can debunk parts of it, but or they attempt to debunk it. But the fact was, he went down there for a period of time. He retreated a lot quicker than expected. He went down there with a huge fleet, and of course he does talk about certain things, whether it be German or craft or what used to be flying saucers. And then of course there was the Arctic Circle and the Inner Earth story. It's just fascinating. So this is, and of course the other thing of Carmine is that the part of Antarctica that is off limits is named after his wife, Marie Birdland, for goodness sake. Come on.
Antarctica's got a lot of mysteries, and Jason, I would say to you that I probably know more about that than I can speak about. But Antarctica has a lot of mysteries, and I pray that someday, I believe someday, we're going to find out what those mysteries are. I believe with all my heart and soul that they haven't told Donald Trump everything. I don't think they tell every president everything. It's on a need-to-know basis, and I think in Trump's case, they would intentionally withhold that information because he'd tell us. Although I will say he's actually said in the past, like, there's some things I know that if I told you, you couldn't handle it. Like, you couldn't handle it. And I agree with him to a point. I think that you have to, as a president or as leader of a country, you have to decide that, all right, I got 10% of my population that are like Carmine and Jason, and they can handle this, and they pretty much already know. And so they're going to take it in stride. But I got 90% of my population who can't spell water, and they're going to freak out. I always say, I have a saying, Jason, I say, think about when you think about the voting block and why do people vote for these things that are crazy and they're not in their own interest? I have a saying, it's not a nice saying, but it's a saying, and feel free for your audience or for you to steal this. Think about the dumbest person you ever met in your life. The dumbest person, okay? You get that picture in your mind. This is the dumbest person I've ever known in all my years on this planet. And when you got that person in mind, I want you to realize that 50% of the people on this earth are dumber than that person. 50% of people in this world are dumber than the dumbest person you ever met. And I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm saying to be a fact. It's a fact because people don't care. They go along to get along. I work 9 to 5, put my money in the bank, eat my meal, yell at my kids, watch my TV, get up in the morning, go back to work, 9 to 5, put the money in the bank. That's how they live. They're robots. We've created robots. And they act like robots. It's unfortunate. Free thinking is not encouraged in schools. I went to private school most of my life where free thinking was encouraged. And maybe that's the advantage I had. My mother worked really hard because we were poor. Worked really hard to send me to Catholic school where we were taught to think freely, to question the teachers. So we thought. And all the kids I went to school with, they're not all brain surgeons, but they're all thinkers. They all have common sense. You know, today, I went to public school for 2 years. And the difference I learned was in Catholic school, I was taught to think and ask questions. In public school, I was taught, memorize this, know it for the test. Mm-hmm. That was it. Don't ask any questions.
Yeah.
Memorize this, know it for the test. Be a good little worker.
And there it is. We come full circle. We'll make this the last question, therefore, and you kind of touched on it with President Trump. Do you feel that this is a unique opportunity in world history that an outsider can create the position or the possibility of massive change and therefore jump-starting a new age, not just in America but around the world? Or is it just another ordinary period in history that we don't get to that stage? How do you view the second term of Trump? And
it depends. I think it is, the possibility exists, but he's got to be followed by a J.D. Vance or a Marco Rubio or somebody of the mindset, because it's going to take more than 4 years to undo the damage. That's why they want it so hard to stop his second term in 2020. And at least now they broke it up. Biden was able to roll back some of that stuff. And now Trump's got to rebuild what he did the first time and then build on that. I think one of the most consequential things Trump could do, and I really have my fingers crossed that he does, is to do alien disclosure. If it's true, and he knows it, if it is true, alien disclosure would be the way to go. I'm not saying it is true. I'm saying if it is, disclose that to the people. Let them know. And I would advise your people to keep an eye on 2027, and maybe before 2027. I think stuff's going to go down before there. So.
That is such an interesting point, because as you're explaining that, I thought, what a perfect thing to do for after the midterms, because it seems that the first 2 years is about the cleanup, and hopefully we get to a form of justice, which we haven't really touched on today. But that would be the perfect thing. So regardless of the outcome, if you were to drop a bombshell information like that everything that you thought you knew has now changed, then what you do is you bring the US Congress into line, and you have to go down a completely new trajectory. For one, most have rejected for the last 70 odd years. So they don't get to claim expert status after ridiculing the subject for so long, and therefore you set a whole new trajectory. So 27 is like almost the perfect for time to do that. That's staggering information, Carmine.
My dear friend Tim Burchett, Representative Tim Burchett of Tennessee, he would be the one to lead it, because he's the one he drives it home every day. He's like, I want disclosure. I want it, because he knows. He knows. I mean, he doesn't know. He doesn't have secret information, but he knows what we know. Things are obvious. Tim's a great guy. So yeah. Thank you so much, Jason.
Well, Carmine, it's been an absolute thrill to be able to connect, and I'll just put up on the screen again to please look out for this book. You're going to love it. Program to Obey: How TV Destroyed America's Soul. What a great idea! A Christmas gift, something different, a new book to celebrate and to bring people together and realize that why it is that the world is not what we thought it was, and there's a good reason why, and the common ground is where all this is decided. Politics, the game of 51-49, makes a big deal, and here you can go and have a look at Carmine's page there, Explain America, and become the second half as he heads towards 1 million subscribers on YouTube. Yeah. Imagine that. Carmine, Sabia, what a great thrill, a privilege. And I look forward to following on and catching up with you in the future, and watching what happens in terms of some of those predictions. The world is changing before our very eyes. Thanks, everyone, for watching the 51st State.